He showed his ticket. He showed his patience. But when a flight attendant refused him his rightful first-class seat, no one knew who he really was. Minutes later, the entire plane sat frozen on the tarmac, because the man they had humiliated was the CEO who had the power to ground it. The airport was buzzing with the usual noise of rolling suitcases, boarding announcements, and impatient sighs. People hurried through security, clutched their passports, and glanced nervously at departure screens. In the middle of all this movement walked a man who carried himself differently from the rest. He wasn't rushing, he wasn't flustered, and he wasn't distracted. He walked with the steady, measured pace of someone used to being in control. His name was Darius Cole. To anyone watching, he looked like a successful businessman, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a crisp suit with a calm expression. What no one in that terminal knew was that he wasn't just a businessman. He was the CEO of one of the largest corporations tied directly to the airline industry. He had money, influence, and a reputation for turning around failing companies with ruthless precision. But today, as he strolled toward his gate, none of that mattered. To most people around him, he was just another black man boarding a plane. Darius approached the gate for his flight to New York. It had been a long week of negotiations overseas, and he was ready for some quiet time in first class. He held his boarding pass, first class, seat 1C, and handed it to the agent with a polite nod. The scanner beeped green, and the gate agent smiled faintly, waving him on. Everything seemed fine. But as soon as he stepped onto the plane and moved toward his seat, he felt the shift. The looks. The small glances passengers gave when they saw him slide into the wide leather seat at the front of the cabin. Most said nothing, but he caught the flicker of raised eyebrows, the whispers behind hands. He had seen it before. And then, just as he was adjusting his jacket, the inevitable happened. A flight attendant appeared in the aisle, her expression tight. She leaned toward him, her voice polite but laced with doubt. "Sir, I believe you may be in the wrong seat. This section is reserved for first-class passengers." Darius looked up slowly, his eyes calm, his tone steady. "This is my seat. 1C. He handed her the boarding pass without hesitation. She scanned it, her brow furrowing, but instead of apologizing, she pressed on. "There must be a mistake. I'll need to ask you to wait in the economy section until we sort this out." The words hung heavy in the air. A couple across the aisle exchanged glances. A man behind him let out a quiet scoff, as if he had expected this. Darius, however, didn't move. He leaned back slightly, his voice carrying a weight that made a few heads turn. "There is no mistake. This is my seat." The attendant stiffened, her polite mask beginning to crack. "Sir, I don't want to cause a scene. Please cooperate." Darius's eyes sharpened, though his voice remained calm. "The only person causing a scene is the one asking me to give up a seat I paid for." The tension spread like wildfire. Passengers nearby leaned in, pretending not to watch but hanging on every word. Someone whispered, "Unbelievable." Another muttered, "Just let him sit." But the attendant didn't back down. "I'm going to have to ask you to move," she said again, her tone harder now. That's when Darius reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and opened a secure app most people had never seen before. His fingers moved quickly, his face unreadable. When he looked back up, his voice was lower, sharper, a blade hidden beneath silk. "You don't know who you're speaking to," he said. The attendant blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" Darius's voice carried through the cabin, measured and steady. "You see me as a passenger who doesn't belong in this seat. But I am more than that. I am the CEO of the company that provides the financing, the logistics, and the infrastructure that keep this airline in the air. And with one call, with one code from this phone, I can ground this plane before it ever leaves the tarmac." The air froze. Every passenger who had been pretending not to listen now stared openly. The whispers stopped. The murmurs died. Even the other attendants further down the aisle paused mid-step, their eyes darting toward him. Darius continued, his tone calm but unshakable. "You can humiliate me publicly. You can try to strip me of the dignity I've earned, but you cannot take this seat from me. Because this plane doesn't leave this airport until I say it does." The attendant's face strained of color. She stammered, her voice trembling now. I didn't mean. I was only. But Darius didn't let her finish. "You meant every word. And so did I." He tapped his phone once more, sending a command through his company's internal system. Within seconds, the captain's voice came over the intercom, confusion audible. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've been asked to pause boarding due to an operational notice. Please remain seated until further updates." The plane collectively inhaled. Passengers exchanged shocked looks. The realization spread like fire. This man had actually grounded the flight. The attendant froze, her confidence shattered. Her mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came. One passenger began clapping softly, then another, until the sound grew louder, echoing through the cabin. Darius sat back in his seat, calm as ever, as if nothing unusual had happened. The captain himself soon emerged from the cockpit, confusion giving way to recognition as his eyes landed on Darius. His tone shifted instantly, respectful and cautious. "Mr. Cole, I wasn't aware you were on board." Darius inclined his head slightly. "Now you are. And I suggest your crew learns quickly who they are speaking to before they make another mistake like this." The captain nodded quickly, whispering something sharp to the flight attendant, who stood frozen with shame. She tried to apologize, but Darius raised a hand slightly, silencing her. His voice cut cleanly through the cabin. "An apology is meaningless if it only comes after you've been exposed. Remember this moment. Because everyone here will." And with that, he leaned back once more, his composure unshaken, his presence undeniable. The plane sat on the tarmac longer than anyone expected, but when it finally did take off, no one forgot the sight of a man who had been denied his seat, only to reveal he had the power to keep the entire aircraft grounded. For the rest of the flight, the crew moved carefully, silently. Passengers whispered among themselves, some smiling with admiration, others shaking their heads in disbelief. And Darius Cole, the man they had doubted, sat calmly in one seat exactly where he belonged. If this story gripped you, if it made you think twice about the hidden power of dignity and truth, don't let it stop here. Share it, because stories like this need to be heard. And if you want more powerful, realistic narratives just like this one, subscribe now, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. Your support ensures that these stories continue to shine a light on moments that reveal who truly holds the power.